Welcome to the Solid Signal podcast for April 30th, 2013. It's a beautiful, bright, sunshiny day here in the Solid Signal blog studios, as it were, and I've got the windows open. So if you hear a bird chirping or car driving by, that's just part of the fun. This week we're going to talk a little bit about Apple. They just released the dates for their Worldwide Developer Conference. Don't bother trying to get a ticket because I guess they're all sold out in about 2 minutes flat. WWDC is where they usually show the next version of the operating system that runs iPhones, iPads, Apple TVs, all that fun stuff. And it's where we get to see our first look at what we're going to be looking at for the next year. Now, before we get started, I've been accused of being an Apple fanboy and I've been accused of being an Apple hater. The truth of the matter is that I do own several Apple devices and I've been using their products for, well, a lot longer than I really care to admit. I've always found them easy to use, easy to manage, and they've been a good choice for me and my family. But that doesn't mean that I've been completely satisfied over the course of the last year. If you look at the Solid Signal blog, you'll find my article from last year where I wrote that iOS version 6 was essentially a fail. That was a controversial point of view back then, but if you take a look at Apple Maps, the fact that Passbook really doesn't do anything a year later, and that iCloud third-party support is still more or less non-existent, I'll stand by it, because honestly there was no new functionality and the look and feel were exactly the same. Now it's make or break time for Apple, to be honest with you. The company is huge. They've got a ton of money. But like that old Janet Jackson song, you have to ask, what have you done for me lately? Android's been growing by leaps and bounds. And I'll be honest with you, their latest software looks really good. Very futuristic, just like what you'd expect control panels on the new Star Trek Enterprise to look like. This is where Apple needs to really hit one out of the park this time. iOS 6, iOS 5 both look pretty much exactly like iOS 4. iOS 7 has got to look great. It can't look dated, it can't have any more of those shiny little icons, it can't have any more of that, oh my god, that awful stitched fabric look. Well, the good news is that the guy who was responsible for all that stuff was canned last year, and Johnny Ive, the guy who was responsible for the outside of the phone, the shiny aluminum cool looking part, he's in charge of everything now. So, as long as there's been enough time to implement what he wants, we should be looking at something really good for iOS 7 this year. I'm hoping the new look is exciting and fun and easy to use and doesn't turn off too much of Apple's installed base. Unfortunately, Apple's base has been getting older, and those folks are a little bit more resistant to change. I'll be honest about that. But it would be great to see an iOS that was still easy and intuitive without all that crazy stitching and shiny and all that nonsense. Of course, we're going to be looking for additional features coming from that operating system as well. It's a little harder to know what those are going to be because, well, to be honest with you, I think the operating system is very feature complete, and it's very hard to know exactly what one would do with it. That's why I'm not paid the big bucks. I guess for me, it would have to be a little bit more customization. Android's the king of customization. Matter of fact, you can customize things a little bit too much with Android sometimes. But hey, Apple, give me the chance to put a few more things on my home screen without having to jailbreak. I'd love that. And, you know what? Make nice with Google. Let's be honest. Google's got some great apps. They just released Google Now for iOS, which is really neat. The Gmail app is fantastic. And the Google Maps app, it goes without saying that this should be your default map app of choice. I think that Apple should get back into the business of partnering with Google, doing what Apple does best, letting Google do what Google does best. They shouldn't be afraid. I guess what I'm saying is that I like Apple's walled garden approach to software, and I appreciate the fact that my iPhone is not anywhere near as prone to malware as Android devices, but I would just like to see a little bit of loosening up on that. Play nice with everybody. After all, that's what the customers really want. Now, you've probably been waiting and trying to figure out how long it was going to be before I mentioned Steve Jobs. A lot of people are saying that Apple just isn't the same without him and that they'll never get that magic back, the mojo is missing. I get that. I have nothing but respect for Steve Jobs and everything that he did. But, especially in his later years, he was keen to admit that he was part of a team, and a lot of that team is still in place. I think Apple's still got great things ahead of it, and I think there are still really visionary people working there. I think Johnny Ive especially is a superstar, and the more control he takes over at Apple, the more we're going to see fun, interesting, and visionary products continuing. In the meantime, the Worldwide Developer Conference is still about a month and a half away, leaving us to salivate and think about all the cool things that could possibly make it into iOS 7. This is the exciting time. This is the time before disappointment sets in. Let's hope that iOS 7 is the slam dunk, home run, pick your sports metaphor that I hope it's going to be, and that it drives innovation throughout the entire cell phone market. That way, everybody wins. That's about it for the Solid Signal podcast today. I know we ran a little bit long, so I thank you for your indulgence. If you have any ideas for future podcasts, check out that orange Suggest a Topic button at the top right of the Solid Signal blog, blog.solidsignal.com. Until next week, have a great one.